Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who every Thursday tries to find something underground for my Thunderground Thursday. Something which maybe flies under the radar, something a little bit unexpected, and certainly the album I'm reviewing now, the EP I'm reviewing now, very quick, only takes 18 minutes to listen to, I suggest you do, is called Queen of the Mall by Flossing. I'm going to get into why I chose this particular project over others. It's always hard. There's so much good music that comes out every week. It's sad that I only have time to do 3, but I am a full-time French professor and I am the chair of my department. The reason I got my Buster Brown suit on here is I actually have like a meeting with the dean later today. Real administrative stuff. So, I'm trying to learn more about music and about what's happening now, with the young people and all that. And, why did I pick this group? Well, first of all, I just like the name of the album, Queen of the Mall. I've always, it's a funny way of parsing the words as opposed to being queen of them all, being queen of the mall, and a hint of that may be a deeper theme which might be interesting. And certainly that deeper theme of our sort of modern alienation and disenfranchisement through consumerism comes through in the music. But the funny thing is, I couldn't really find out much. I try to do like 5 minutes of research, just get the idea of who is it that I'm reviewing. I don't like go super in depth because I don't want that to color my review too much. But it turns out that Flossing is the solo project of someone named Heather L. And when I looked up Heather L on the internet, I found somebody who I believe is the absolute opposite of her. So if you look up like Heather L, this is the artist bio that I found for the first person who pops up. Heather L. Shelby is a self-taught artist from Archer City, Texas, and now resides in Dallas with her husband and 4 children. Her artwork has been sold in places like New York, Chicago, Dallas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Paris, France. Heather draws her inspiration from her faith in Christ and her family. So I just found that funny. I love art. I love thinking about art, different artists, different inspirations, So this ended up being this sort of artist who lives in Texas who just makes, fairly whatever art you would imagine that would be inspired by someone's faith in Christ and family in Dallas, Texas. That's what it is. That is very different from the person I'm reviewing here, Flossing, who, in my little research, it said, oh, she used to be the bassist in Bodega. Okay. Who? So this happens a lot when I'm like reviewing smaller groups. They were all in other groups as well. So I've never heard Bodega before. I don't know what Bodega's about. I assume they're pretty good because Flossing is pretty good. So, like what is it? I mean, what is it that drew me to this when I listened? Sorry, my notes are just flopping all over the place. I apologize for me moving. They keep flopping. Hey, notes, stop flopping. Here, I'll show you how I'm actually doing it. See, I have my notes on my computer, and I'm using my computer as a tripod, which turns out not the best. Whoa, now I look too small. Wheel goes flying off. Okay. So it turns out that she's this bass player who has this solo project, and the solo project that she came up with is very engaging. It reminds me most of the things I like about Depeche Mode. So I have sort of an ambiguous relationship towards Depeche Mode, but the good parts are here, like a cool kind of like somewhat poppy, somewhat industrial, somewhat organic, somewhat electronic, slightly like sexy and slightly bored singing. There's something about this whole album that reminds me of just like, if you've ever been to like a goth dance party, it's very enjoyable. like kind of gothic dark music is sort of the most fun music to dance to, at least for me. I think it's way underestimated as far as music to dance to. It has kind of a proto-techno, proto-industrial, post-punk sound. It actually reminds me of a fair amount of punk like out of like France and England in the sort of early 80s, as opposed to like, super guitar driven. That point in music where, because you may not know this, but new wave is basically just a deformation of punk. That sort of like weird interstitial period between punk and new wave. That's where this music kind of sits. The singing voice is quite nice. It's a very low voice. I guess it reminds me a little bit of Susie Sue or, but I don't know, that just might be just weird sort of chauvinism on my part. The themes, one theme which is brought up a fair amount, there's a fair amount of sort of sadomasochism and kink on here. which is engaging. But beyond that, there's a lot of very modern themes. I mean, even the name Flossing has multiple meanings, right? On the one hand, you can say flossing refers to the stupid dance that kids do these days, which if I remember, I'll do the floss at the end of this video. We'll see if I remember how to do it. My kids taught me a couple years ago. Or, it means like an ostentatious show of wealth, like you're flossing. So, and this is very much where the album resides in, where it's trying to be sort of, it's never just one statement. It's like multiple statements at once. They're usually tied around technology, alienation, being disaffected, the breakdown of society through technology, the breakdown of society through inhuman treatment by other humans. But let me give you an example. Okay, let me give you the stamp of the album. It's called Trap. I'm going to include a link to the video up here. Not safe for work? I don't know. On the borderline for work. I'm at work. And it was on the borderline for me. But this is a great example of the sound of the album, these great chugging, electronic, arpeggiated keyboards, automated drums, cool kind of industrial sounds, like a sound like a stamping machine, but great guitar work and bass work throughout. It's an important thing. I don't know what bodega is. I assume they're good. But having an actual musician, like a touring, working musician, making music by themselves, gives you something different than someone who just started in their bedroom, right? Someone who went from the stage to the bedroom to make their music is very different than someone who starts in the bedroom and goes to the stage. And this very much feels like somebody who knows how to rock, who knows how to make music, sort of making a smaller project. What I like about this in particular is the lyrics. It's called Trap, and it's intentionally like a protest song and a song about sort of modern alienation. Trap in this case, here, I'll read you the lyrics to the chorus. To the first verse. Smile, you're a man. Smile, you're on candid cam. Era of the trap queens. Era fighting trap laws. So if we break that all down, we get this great, really fluid sense of what is she talking about. So smile, you're on candid cam. And then it goes era of the trap queens. So musically, we are in the era of the trap queens, right? The trap being the rundown house in the inner city in which people sell primarily crack, right? Like that's the trap house that's so popular and trap music and everything. And so there are a lot of trap queens in music. And so she's referring to that, which I think is a good symbol of the sort of downfall of our society and the urban decay and all that. And then era fighting trap laws is like ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, fighting trap laws. In this case, TRAP stands for Targeted Regulation of Abortion Providers. The meeting later is actually going to be with a professor of women and gender studies. I'm going to ask her if she knows about this song, because I think it's a pretty good song, because it's a protest song against all these terrible abortion laws that keep getting passed over and over and over and over and over again, and we keep thinking they won't be passed, and they end up being passed. Might be time to go to the streets, but might have been time to go to the streets. Jesus. Anyways, it's like, it's about that, but then it's also about these other things and about the surveillance state. And it's also about like the consumerism embodied in trap music and the trap themes. All the time we have this bass interacting with the guitar and this confusing message. And there's even a thing where I read her discussing this song, and she said one of the lines in the song is like, her clothes fell on the tarmac. And this was just something that she overheard and tried to write a song around it. So it is a protest song, but she's never right on the nose. She's always quite bizarre, quite a little bit off. And I love the way that the sounds and the messages are completely confused. This is the way she describes the song herself, by the way. I couldn't make this up. Humanity's fear of antimattering, mixed with surveillance capitalism's psychological warfare, is quite the dirty martini to sip on every day. I don't know. That highlights the other part of this. Very New York. This is a very New York album. I mean that in a good way, okay? Like New York, the center of art, the center of the world, right? The idea of like the sound, it feels very underground New York, artsy, people who are trying to make music but also make art at the same time, right? The video, which I sent a link to, is also quite nice. The mixture of S&M themes and kind of a Namjoon Pike sort of video display. It matches the theme. It's very aggressive and agreeable. And I'd say that goes for the entire album. It's aggressive and agreeable. Next song we get to is Switch, which is cool. It starts with kind of like Siren in the beginning. So this is the beginning of the album. So The Stamp was the last song. I'm now going to start over at the beginning of the album. And it starts with this left to right siren and this cool kind of like slightly even trap beat. Her voice is super loud, just super duper loud. I am both scared of but intrigued by the deviant nature of man. Like I said, this is somebody who I don't know anything about her. I couldn't find anything about her. I looked her up on the internet and discovered that she does all of her art in service of Christ and her family, and presumably Golden Shepherd. So I don't know anything about her, but I imagine that she went to college, and I imagine that this kind of like writing is in that kind of register. What's cool is that the drums are very far behind the mix, how far her voice is. And then we get this very catchy, kinky chorus. You're a lot like me, do you see yourself inside me, and I can switch from bottom to top if you like that. And I can't help but ask, what could we be both avoiding? And I wonder if you like to see your hands around my neck. It's that third line, so we have all this kind of kinky stuff, you know, switch from bottom to top and choke me and all that stuff. Great, you know, shiny, shiny, shiny boots of leather, right? Great. I love music about S&M. It's usually pretty interesting, kind of mysterious, hard to decipher. It's fine. But it's really this third line that interests me the most. What could we be both avoiding, right? The idea that this sexual quest or this quest for some kind of ornate sexuality could be that we're avoiding something. Either we're avoiding something outside of the world or avoiding something inside of ourselves. Very cool, kind of like Depeche Mode feeling all the way throughout. The outro even reminds me a little bit, maybe even of 9 Inch Nails again, low-key and slightly aggressive. How does one have morals when the world is so hopeless? The song cuts. It cuts very quickly. The next song is called On Red. Secretly, this is the reason that I'm reviewing this song. I got into a fight with my wife. Now, it's not a real fight. We get along really well. But my son just explained to me the term on red. Do you know what on red means? It means someone sends you a message and you read it, but you don't respond. This drives me crazy as a language professor because I often don't read messages. And those messages are unread. So how have we accepted the fact that on red and unread mean opposite things, yet they sound almost exactly the same? We walked around the block and had an argument, a very sort of philosophical, we weren't actually mad, right? A kind of a philosophical argument. Me saying this is a great failure of communication, her saying basically, okay, boomer. But it's useful because it's a good theme, and what she explained to me is that really on red is seen as a sign of aggression. But it's great because it's this passive aggression, and the passive aggression of technology is sort of what's in here. Swiping is easy, left, right, sex on demand. These general themes, and again, themes about alienation through technology might seem overcommon, might feel like we're getting too much of them, but we can't possibly be getting enough. Based on how our life is, how life is changing, we need more songs about alienation through technology. Every album should be about that for like 10 years for us to catch up with how much it's changing our lives. I mean, Christ, we had the cars arrive and we had 2 decades of just every album had to have a song about cars, okay? Can we do that? About swiping and about smartphones and about on red and unread, okay? It's a cool song too, like these, that's kind of upbeat and discordant, kind of like gets you psyched. Add to cart is the next song. Another great term, right? She's almost doing like the Radiohead thing of sort of like taking these random terms that we find in our life, we don't pay attention to, that have become a part of our sort of emotional, physical, spiritual, visual landscape. Like add to cart. When did you first see the words add to cart? Okay? 20 years ago? 25 years ago? It didn't used to be this way. Add to cart didn't mean anything. The same way on red didn't mean anything. If I sent you a letter, it couldn't be on red. You just had the damn letter, right? And so it's kind of going into this question of, the emptiness of consumerism. Again, more kind of upbeat Depeche Mode sounding music. And by that I mean like lyrical, poppy, slightly dark, drum machine with interesting bass work. That's what I mean by sounding like Depeche Mode. Will I get enough of the taste I can't see? Kids are for tricks, are you kidding me? A race for the taste of every letter in sight. Online life is full of surprises. Okay, just great disaffected lyrics. Next song is called Psychosis, about the sort of general problems of life. Great work with the guitars kind of moving together and falling apart. Kind of a helicopter-y sound here. Like the guitar lines sort of like invert, like they'll do one thing and then they'll sort of do the opposite thing on the next bars. It's quite nice. Dead Generation from Higher Education. And this is my favorite lyric. We're not out of it. We are out of it, not over it. I don't know anything about flossing. I don't know anything about bodega. Okay, I don't know anything. But I do know this. That is one of the better lyrics about the current human condition in privileged society that we live in. We are out of it, not over it. Beautiful. Perfectly written. Love it. And then we end with the song Trap. A beautiful song that I've already discussed. So there you go. You might like flossing. I don't know how I'm going to sort of, what I'm going to give as far as the, well, let's see if I can do it. Are you ready? All right. So the key is to start this way. There we go. Look at that. I am so Fortnite. Oh my God. When I tell my kids that I flossed on my video, they are just going to be, oh, 1 second. I didn't even think of the other one. See, I got a lot of dental work. And I eat a lot of celery. So I keep floss with me at all times. So I have now flossed in 2 different ways. I'm the queen of them all. Okay, until next time. I'm glad this is on Thunderground Thursday. You know, if I did this on one of my bigger videos, I don't think I'd ever be able to live it down. All right, until next time, there's the camera.